I think body shaming means like when you're criticizing someone's weight or size or shape, and you're doing it at the expense of, you know what I'm saying, in the expense of for your happiness.
When you're trying to lessen someone's confidence in themselves by attacking something that I think is a weak point for them.
Body shaming to me means when people make even the slightest comment about somebody's weight, size, how tall they are, how short they are, and making them feel bad about it.
Body shaming to me is self-inflicted psychological torture.
Let's say you were to tell me something, right? Like you were to say, "Oh, I'm fat" or something like that. I'd be like, whatever. So I wouldn't really consider it body shaming to me, right? You know, for others, it could be, you could call someone skinny, someone that's actually skinny fat, and that would damage them. Like, you know, and to me, like that would represent a little bit of body shaming. So I think that it's kind of, to me, it's just kind of picking on someone's weak spot, you know?
I mean, if you Google body shaming, you'll see like a long list of things about how it's shaming other people for how they look. But I feel like people forget that sometimes people can shame themselves for how they look. And most of what you read on the internet says how people verbally shame someone for, like, let's say their weight or their height, sometimes even their hair color, which I think is kind of weird. But it's mainly because people are trying to fit a superficial mold of how they think they should look, and most of the time it's a mold that they're never going to be able to fit. And it may sound harsh, but accepting the fact that you'll never look a certain way is like, it's like putting you on a path to love yourself. It's like planting a flower that can never bloom. But you know, it deals a lot about shaming others, but I don't think we should forget that our own thoughts are the bigger monster.
I think it exists largely because of social media.
I think in this society, I think a lot of us we're dealing with a lot of insecurity issues. And so what happens, right? Misery, love company. And I think at times, you know, when you don't feel whole with yourself, what would you tend to do? You tend to look at someone else that probably is dealing with something, and you make fun of them. I think a lot of it, it's a lot of people that don't really know themselves, and they feel like to fill the voids to mock someone else or to bring someone else down, I think. So I think if we can start with getting to know ourselves, recognizing our flaws and recognize who we are, then I don't think it would matter.
I think it exists because people are awful. You know, like, that's how bullying in general is a thing, because, you know, human nature kind of dictates that, you know, for some reason we try to make each other miserable.
Because of how society portrays a perfect body type. You see like Instagram models or even models in general, and they all have that tall, skinny figure. And growing up, you know, even with sisters, and my sister feels the same way, like that is what the perfect body type is. And that's all we see.
You'll have people, right? I find the weirdest thing, right, is that you'll have people that look exactly the same, right? And one of them will be shaming the other person, even though they look exactly the same. You know, to me, it's not about like being skinny. It's not about being, you know, bigger. It's not about being short or tall. It's simply about somebody else trying to find something to bother you with, you know? And that's what humans are good at doing.
I don't think it's becoming an epidemic. I think it is an epidemic. You know, body shaming leads to toxic behavior against other people and to yourself. But it's the reason why there are girls out there with eating disorders, and it's also the reason why some men wear their shirts in the pool. But I think the main cause of body shaming is us, and I think one of the things people forget about is labels. You know, there's labels that get tossed around about how someone's either too fat or too skinny, or sometimes it's even about their height. But another thing too is it's just a way for people to categorize individuals, but those who don't fit those beauty standards, I guess, it leads them to hate themselves essentially. But another thing too is the sizing on clothing. I think people put emotional value to that, and it leads to people who, let's say they wear an XL, it leads them to think that they're not beautiful. And really, you just have to find that thing about you that makes you shine. So I think, yeah.
I think, I don't know if I can say this, but I think Steve said it earlier. I think you need to, people are always going to be mean. People are always going to be, at times, not nice. I think you need to find a place where you can feel whole and where you can also, I'm going to say this, right? Being too skinny at times, right? And this is not because I'm body shaming. You know, let's not also take this out of it, right? We're not promoting for you to be obese. We're not promoting for you to be at a weight that is probably not good for you. Maybe if you're too skinny where it's like, it becomes a medical issue, you know what I'm saying? That's not what I'm promoting. But also, it is not nice to criticize or mock or be harsh with someone and because they're a particular size and you feel insecure about that and you feel like you have to point that out. I think as a community, we have to come together and work toward the bigger goal. But I think like my friend Steve said, I think it's important that you need to be at a place where you're in tune, you have accept yourself for who you are. When that happens, you now have the power. Now the ball is in your court. You have the power to accept what someone is saying or deny what someone is saying, right? And when you can reach that point, I think you kind of, you know what I'm saying? I think you have reached the point where you can protect yourself from things that are not good for
Yeah.
you.
Maybe a nuke. You know? Like, yeah, I don't know what you want me to tell you, bro. Like, it's like, I'm not gonna sit here and believe that, body shaming is a new thing. There's really nothing new under the sun. There's just new ways to do it. And I think that this is something that's been happening since way before. And it's probably going to continue to happen until, until we kind of go extinct.
I don't think so. Loving yourself is easier said than done. And it's not going to happen overnight, but you can take the steps toward loving yourself. And the first thing is realizing that you are who you are, and it's accepting who you are and the way that you look. It's like when you let light into your life, there's always going to be parts of your bodies that cast shadows. And for you to love yourself, I feel like you have to find a way to appreciate the light and the dark. It's like appreciating the good and the bad. And as great as it would be to live in a world where wearing a size XL didn't mean being fat, we sadly don't. I don't think body shaming is going anywhere.
I don't think that there's a way to completely solve it. I think it'll always exist, but I think that there's certain steps that could be taken in society to make it better. Even just like clothing lines or even just in the fashion industry, having models of all different shapes and all different sizes, because every body is beautiful.
This is going to act kind of as an apology, but I do want to apologize to people because I've actually body shamed quite a lot on the videos that we do on this channel. So I do want to apologize. I also want to state that in a lot of ways, I think that I have been in situations that probably would be considered body shaming to other people, but yeah, man, I don't know. I just kind of really don't care enough to consider body shaming. So it's like, yeah.
I don't really have any personal. I mean, people have been like, "Oh, bro, you look so skinny," and it never really bothered me. I don't really care. I knew that with time, I'm gonna get, my metabolism is gonna slow down and things are gonna start changing. And for me, it's just like, look. If you're not paying my bills, if you're not sustaining me, what you're saying to me doesn't matter to me. If you're not part of my community, it doesn't bother me that way. but I can say that I have brothers and sisters that are in that community that are being affected, and that if Martin Luther King said, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. So I think that just because it might not be impacting me at this current moment or at this current time, but it is impacting my brothers and sisters, and it is my concern. It is my duty to make to speak about it and to bring awareness and stuff like that.
I feel like just little comments here and there, just from mostly family members, which is weird. Just like, oh, you've gained weight, or oh, you've lost a lot of weight. I feel like every time I see a family member that I haven't seen in a while, there always has to be a comment on your weight, and I feel like it's just completely unnecessary. I feel like you should talk about school or work or just so many other things that you could make a comment on, and nothing that has to do with your weight or your body.
All right, this is the one I was dreading. So I have a story that I want to tell. I don't talk about this a whole lot, and if you're watching this and you know me, this may be a surprise to you, but I was a pretty overweight kid growing up. And I got teased about it here and there, and that's expected. But I just loved food, and I ate lots of it. So I got teased about it by kids at school, and there was even an occasion where I just came home and just cried in my room. But I feel like the most psychological torture, I guess, came from my relatives. Yeah, I come from a culture where people are either too large or too skinny, and there's no in between. And I always thought that I don't know if it's with all people, but I know that I came from a family that did act that way towards people. And being the only one of my siblings that had weight problems, like all the white noise about being too big was projected onto me. And I remember when holidays would come around, I would always get like comments about, oh, look look how chubby you are, try not to eat it all. But I wasn't the only one receiving ridicule from my family. Like my sister, she was a relatively thin girl growing up, so she would always get comments about being too skinny, and she still does now, but I feel like she's in a lot healthier place. And even now, with the way that I look, I'm still pushing for how I look. So it's like it was like a drastic change for everybody to see me as a kid and to see how I am now. But yeah, it carried on into my teenage years. It affected me in a variety of ways. I didn't have much confidence in high school. I wasn't very popular. Talking to girls was a struggle. But yeah, it wasn't until I was 17, it was the summer before my senior year, where I decided to do something about it. I downloaded this app on my phone that it was like a running app. It tracks like your distance and your the amount of calories you burn. And I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna start doing this. So I started running for an entire summer. But not only did I do that, but I stopped eating. I stopped eating because I figured if I didn't eat, there was nothing that I could put on. So I did that. I was like eating once a day, and I started out running 1 mile, and then gradually 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 3, and sooner or later I was running 6 miles a day, 7 days a week for an entire summer. But in addition to that, I was eating once a day, which on average I was taking in like 500 to 600 calories a day, and running 6 miles. So I was basically running on empty calories. And I was sick mentally. And what was I gonna say next? Throughout that whole summer, my head was just filled with all these toxic comments that were just echoing throughout my head, like, oh, no one is ever gonna love you, which isn't true at all. I know that now. Yeah, I was running on empty calories, and there was one time where I just ran until I fell over, which I know isn't great, but it wasn't healthy at all for me physically or mentally. And when people work out, they usually do it because they want to, or because they want to be healthier. And in this case, I was, but I didn't take the safe route. Like I was always telling myself, this is something you have to do, and which in reality, working out is never something that you have to do. It should be a choice. But it wasn't until I physically started looking different that my family kind of worried about me a lot. They thought I was sick, and my uncle even accused me of being on drugs at one point because he could see my cheekbones. Yeah, I did that for a whole summer, and I think I was June of 2016. I was around 215, I guess, and then by August I was 140. So yeah, all that weight in like a 2-3 months span is dangerous. It really is. And the funny thing about it all is, like, by my senior year, none of my clothes fit. So yeah, everything looked like it was swallowing me. And I remember I would get annoyed with my pants because they were so loose on me that they would like drag across the floor. So what I started doing is I took old shoelaces off of my old shoes and I would tie them around my ankles. And so that kept it from dragging across the floor. So, and it's funny because even when I did have clothes that fit me properly, I still did it. And this sounds stupid because it almost acted like a safety blanket for me. Like for some reason I felt secure when I did it, even when my pants fit properly. And I remember there would be times where even when I didn't do it, I would feel naked for some reason when I didn't do it, because it felt so weird to me for like all that space to be around my ankles. So looking back at it all, my mental health wasn't at its best, but I'm also grateful for what I did. I know that sounds weird, but doing what I did and thinking the way that I did, it put me on a path to loving myself. And even now I don't feel like I'm in the best shape in the world, but I know that I'm in a much healthier place physically and mentally. All the times that my family were asking me that I was sick and I was telling them that I wasn't, I should have been saying yes because I was mentally sick. But I'm grateful for it all, and I'm learning to love myself a little bit more every day thanks to the help of some awesome people.
Just stay strong and get in a place where these things doesn't even get to you anymore. Because like Steve said, there are always going to be people that are out there that are going to promote those kind of things. And I think the solution is where everyone needs to get in a place where they feel confident about who they are.
In a lot of ways, like people say, hey, you gotta, like, if you're not comfortable with who you are, just do something about it and stuff like that, which I do think you should do. But I think it's more of a mental issue. I think that's something that you should try to fix within yourself, because at the end of the day, like I said before, people are always going to be mean. There's awful people in this world. The world just isn't a fair or a good place. And I think that it would be a lot more beneficial for people who are experiencing things like that to try to fortify their own soul and their own spirit and their own mindset so that they could take on the obstacles that they're going to experience. You're going to face obstacles. So I think that you should prepare yourself to face them instead of, wanting other people to be nice to you. Because at the end, it's just not going to, you're not going to really get what you want if that's what you're asking people to do.
I wasn't looking for sympathy when I told you guys that story, but I wanted to tell it to, I guess, inspire some of you, and I wanted it to be a message to you guys to say that you are enough the way that you are, and like I said, loving yourself is easier said than done, but it's just what you have to learn to do. And, you know, if you are getting shamed or you have been shamed, you just gotta block it out. It's just white noise to you, and you should never, you know, take it to heart, because like the other guy said, what people say about you and towards you is just, it shows a lot about who they are. So I would say ignore it. And if you want to change the way that you are, just be safe about it. Do as I say, not as I do. And yeah.
That you shouldn't let anybody's words impact how you feel about yourself, and that you are beautiful. And no matter how society portrays a beautiful person or a body, that if you're happy with yourself, then it shouldn't matter what other people say about you.